Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for the seven-figure entrepreneur who's looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday.
Yes, it is indeed a happy Monday.
Where has the year gone?
It's almost over, that's for sure. Can't believe we're in the Christmas season.
Yeah.
Man, time is flying. That's why you really need to lean in on what we're going to talk about today. Our topic today is the best option to scale and exit your business. That's our theme for today. And we've got someone here who has exited and scaled multiple businesses. So he's going to tell us what he did, how you can do the same. Let's get right to it, Ted. Let's get right to it. All right.
No need of waiting any longer, man. Let's go and get to it.
That's right. We're not going to belabor the point. There you go.
Let's go.
So our guest today, he is the founder of Best Option Restoration, B.O.R Inc., Saint Home Care, and Uncle Vito's Pizzerias, all extremely successful franchise systems. In addition, he's a four-time published author, business strategist, and an award-winning serial entrepreneur that has had tremendous success in various business ventures. We'll let you let him tell us all about it. Please join us in welcoming to the 30-minute hour, Nick Anthony Zamucen.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man, welcome. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show today. I did want to give everybody the backstory perspective. Tell us about how did your childhood upbringing impact you and shape you into the person you are today?
Man, loaded question from the get-go. Okay, here we go. Childhood was interesting. You know, I was a foster care kid. I was bouncing in and out of trailer parks, essentially. My mom, unfortunately, substance abuse, drug addict, which kind of was what it was. My dad was a rock and roller. He spent his time on I guess the road is the right way of saying it. When your mom, you got a single mom raising two kids in her 20s, early 20s, and trying to better herself, but addiction gets to you. I mean, back in the 80s, man, there was a lot of drinking and there was a lot of cocaine, and so how that affected me going forward was, it made me lean into my faith quite a bit, and contribution and giving back is something that I'm very passionate about. And we were talking about that just before we got on here. So, I think for me, what it taught me at a very young age was that, people make mistakes and redemption is a real thing. And I didn't want, when I had a family of my own, I never wanted to, my kids will never know what it's like, or they will not, I'll say it this way, they won't have the same relationship with money as that I do. It's good and bad. But I think having an upbringing that's rough, like a lot of people in America have. It's not unique to me. I think one of the things that kind of makes it unique is there's two roads you can go down. You can continue that path and know what you've seen, and or you can kind of try to take the other path, and that path that's a little less taken sometimes, and actually try to reverse engineer what you've actually seen to do what I call the right thing. So that's what I've tried to focus on, is doing the right thing every step of the way.
That's interesting because, a lot of people have, a background like that, and they may use that as an excuse or crutch as to why they can't succeed. But so what was it about you that motivated you to take the right path?
Well, I a good friend of mine said one time, you learn more nots from your parents than what to do. And I think that's really what it was. Growing up, when you don't have that, what I would call positive influence right in front of you, all you see least for me, all I saw was what I didn't want to be and who I didn't want to be. And, I was told things as a child that, things like, and I don't say this to my kids, but things like, it's just a white lie. As long as it doesn't hurt anybody, it's okay. And, I remember one time I was coming out of a store with my parents and, with one of them, and they had grabbed a box of firewood. And I said, wait, you didn't, I was probably 7. I said, you didn't pay for that. I didn't hear you pay for it at the counter. And they said, oh, well, if they ask us, we'll just say we did. And I was like, that's stealing, and like, shh, so again, it's a lot of things that you learn that you don't want to be like. And I try to emulate who I do want to be and live who I do want to be every step of the way. It's, and again, leaning into my faith, I grew up Baptist, as I moved out to California. I became a confirmed Catholic with my father when I did have a relationship with him briefly. And so to me, spirituality and faith moving forward has been kind of at the forefront of my life. And that's why I choose to try to, contribute back, to my surroundings.
Yeah, that's awesome. Then I know you initially your plan was to be a professional athlete. That's you were thinking. That's the way you were looking, right? So I did my research here, Nick.
Yeah,
so
you did.
you wanted to be a professional athlete. So how do you pivot from sports to the serial entrepreneur path? What did that look like?
Well, wait.
Yeah.
So what was the sport, Nick?
Well, I thought, growing up in San Francisco, man, everyone wants to be Joe Montana. So I thought I was going to be Joe Montana. And then I figured out I'm 5'11". I'm not Joe Montana.
Yeah, no. Drew Brees maybe, but not.
That's true. Even Russell Wilson, was about big. I just didn't have that talent. But I learned at a real young age, and it came from sports, that I'm not real good at listening to people and, being told what to do. I can hear it. I just don't pay attention very well to it. I remember one time, I was on, the football field, and, I was a quarterback, and coach called a play, and I was like, no, that's not the right play.
That's not the right one.
So
a little better.
We're not running that play.
And I had the right one, and it worked. And he said, congratulations. Go pick some splinters out of your butt. And I got benched the rest of the game. And even though my play worked, it was not what he called. And I remember talking to a good friend of mine's parents. And again, because my parents just weren't really around, and I was talking to a good buddy of mine's parent. And he said, look, when you're on that field, he is the boss. And I'm like, yeah, but he's not right. And that's not your decision to make. And so it was, and I just learned at a young age that not only, one, am I not Russell Wilson or Drew Brees? I did not have the talent. But two, I found myself always being very good at seeing the problem or finding a solution to what I see to be the problem, right or wrong. And I wasn't scared to take that risk. And that's where I think the whole entrepreneurship came into it. Is I'm unemployable. People just don't want to work with people like me. I'm very friendly outside of work, but boy, I'm kind of strong-headed and believe what I want to believe. And again, I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. So it makes me a pretty good, as far as I've been fortunate to be successful and hired a lot of people that are smarter than me. And I get to take credit for a lot of shoulders that I stand on. However, I'm not scared to take that risk. And I think that's one of the things as an entrepreneur that you have to be able to take. Can you sleep at night when the pressure's on you? Can you continue without without being aggressive and stressed out your whole life? And can you sit back and laugh? And some people, it just doesn't work for them.
But was there a time where you actually tried the corporate route, or you just instantly knew that I will never work for anybody?
Well, I did. I mean, I tried. I tried to be in a stockbroker for a while, and sell insurance and annuities. And I had a good mentor of mine say, you're pretty good with people. You're pretty good with numbers. You might want to try doing this. And I did. And I can say, it was straight out of college, and I rose up pretty fast. But I was just hating wearing a suit every day and sitting behind a desk every day. And it just wasn't for me. And while thankfully I was good at it, and I feel like sales is probably the closest thing to being an entrepreneur as you can get in the corporate world, because you got a lot of autonomy and you kind of do what you want as long as you hit your numbers. And so I found myself being pretty good at it, but it just wasn't fulfilling. And I knew where I wanted to go because of the value that I put on a dollar, where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I knew it was going to be very hard working for someone else and living someone else's dream to be able to do that.
Interesting. So you didn't really necessarily go the traditional entrepreneurial route. You went the franchise route. I
Yeah.
mean, did it have anything to do with the conversation you had with the Cold Stone CEO? What was it that motivated that?
Well, Eric, you went deep, man. You went, you do some good research. Yeah, it did. It did. When I was building companies and buying them back and then reselling them, and one of the things that Blackwell said was, hey, what you're doing is franchising. You're just not getting the upside of it. What you need to do is give people opportunities, show them what you know, show them how to build a business, build models, build systems, and take a percentage of it every step of the way. And as he outlined what franchising was, I did realize, yeah, that is kind of what I'm doing. I'm just not, registering and being legal about it and really duplicating the efforts and making it national. I was doing it just kind of regionally, onesie twosie. And he inspired me to get involved and say, hey, let me build something of worth that can really employ and kind of goes back to, teaching a man to, giving him a fish versus teaching a man to fish. And that kind of struck me that I can do what I do and coach and counsel and be good for someone else and be there as their rock without having to do the daily grind of whatever business, whether it's pizzerias or non-medical home care or bio or restoration, whatever it might be. I can develop the system, teach them, support them, continue to train them, and let them run on it while having a financial upside for me. So it worked out pretty well.
Yes, I mean, you've got a formula. I mean, you've been successful with 3 different exits, and you're currently in a successful franchise model now.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like what steps would you take to begin with if you were to start a new venture like tomorrow? Like what steps would you take to begin with the end in mind and kind of duplicate your success?
Well, I will tell you what, come the first of the year, what I'm big on, and I'm going to answer your question, but this is going to tie into it. What I do is I'll create a franchise system, let's say, to a certain size, 75, 80, 100 franchises. And then I'll have the management team in place and I'll take a step back. Well, with Best Option Restoration, come January 1st, I'm taking a step back. And management team's in place. They're going to run it for me. And they'll have it for the next 7 to 8 years, 7 or 8 years, and then I'll exit. I'll let them explode it and then I'll exit. So I am creating a new company right now. And so what I do is I look at, just like anybody else or anything else, I research the market. I research competitors. I find out what everyone's doing well in the market and where I can exploit their weaknesses. I target weaknesses to do something that no one else has done. I'll give you a perfect example. Best Option Restoration. The really differentiator between us and everybody in the market is thermal technology. Nobody in the market was doing thermal technology. Now, I didn't invent thermal technology. I didn't create these machines. I patented things here and there, but what I did was borrowed from another industry. So the thermal technology actually came from the bed bug industry. Bed bugs die at 122 degrees. And so what they would do is they'd put these heaters in and they would bake a room essentially and kill off all the bugs. And I was sitting back one day and thinking about what my next venture was going to be after B.O.R. And I said, well, wait a minute. If you're heating things up, essentially creating a drying chambers, wouldn't that work for restoration? Wouldn't that work for water restoration as well as mold? And the more research I did, I realized, I looked around and went, no one's doing this. No one's doing this, and they should, because they're drying things in half the time. So I found something that no one else was doing, borrowed it from another industry, and created a whole franchise concept something that no one else has seen in the space off of borrowed technology, essentially. And that's where thermal technology came from. So I'm big on research. I will research competitors, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. I think it's important to know what they're doing right, because you want to take that and you want to compound on it. And what they're doing wrong, you want to attack it. So that's even with the current company. And Eric, before you ask, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but even with the current company I'm developing, I am attacking where people are faltering.
No, that's brilliant. So, I mean, is there a set? Is it like 3 competitors? Is it, I mean, typically, how many competitors do you look at?
Oh gosh, I will look at the entire. I mean, I can tell you before I got into restoration, I looked at all 17 major restoration companies, from the big green trucks, the big yellow trucks, to the Canadian company. As you can see, I'm not going to give them any more publicity than they already have. I'll just tell you what they look like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I will research everybody I can find, because the way I look at it is, the more knowledge base I can bring out of my research, the better focused I can be. What you don't want to be is build yourself a really good jet that just flies around, but you don't have a landing point, you don't have a target. And so for me, research is that landing pad. I want to know where I'm going with the company, why I'm going there, and give myself an adjustment of how fast I can get there.
Okay.
So Nick,
go ahead, Ted.
So Nick, have you thought about like businesses outside of the franchise scenario? Like,
yeah,
I got this idea and maybe I'm just gonna do this thing.
Yeah, Ted, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah. So you hope so.
Franchise. It's in the private sector. So yeah,
okay.
It will. It'll be revolutionary what I do, as far as what I'm developing and creating, and it's going to change some things in the markets, and quite a few home service markets. It's going to make quite a bit of difference. It's going to make a splash when it comes out. But it will be. I'll say it will not be a franchise system.
So you don't want to tell us right now? It'll just be between the 3 of us. You don't.
Yeah. We won't tell anybody.
Won't tell. Just be
not yet. Maybe I'll let you know in 6 months when you guys will be one of the first to know. I'll send you an email.
All right. Okay.
There you go. Awesome. We'll be at the top of the list. So when you're looking at franchisees, like what are some of the like common personality types of franchisees that succeed?
I want someone who wants to follow a system. Someone who, I talk to franchises all the time about, usually the ones that aren't mine. I'll speak on, franchise topics, or someone will bring me in for a keynote, and I will, and the question comes up is, what makes a good franchisor? What makes a bad one? And I tell them one of the things that makes a bad franchisee is someone who thinks they can follow a plan but can't, and wants to do it themselves. I am a terrible friend. I would be a terrible franchisee. There's a model there that I will want to challenge because I think I can do it better. We don't need people like me. We need people that say, I see the value in a proven system. I just want to follow it. Hand me the playbook and let me run the plays. Don't audible anything. And that's what you look for. I tell people, I'm not looking for a resume. I have stay-at-home moms. I have sales guys. I have a guy that was a trash collector for a long time. I have, bankers. And the commonality between them was the want and the need to follow a system and have someone as a teammate, not just, starting something from scratch. And it's, give me the entrepreneurial spirit and I'll run with it. You got to want to really follow a plan because it's a proven model. If you don't want to follow a plan, don't buy a franchise. Just don't do it, because you'll butt heads with a franchisor nonstop. And and any franchise agreement in the world that you look at, it's all one-sided. It's our way or no way. You didn't buy into our company, or we didn't buy into your company, you bought into ours. So all the agreements are all lean towards the franchisee or franchisor, and it's fair if you follow the system. It's very unfair if you do not.
So just my experience with people that get into franchises, is sometimes there's an unrealistic expectation they have. They think that it's this, okay, it's just a turnkey system. The name is already established. I don't really have to do anything. The franchise is going to support me, and they underestimate the work that they still have to do.
Right.
What do you see along those lines?
That is a bad sales process. That is a process where a salesman came in and said, "Oh yeah, just come in and we'll send you leads." That I've had that conversation with a lot of people, and I say, look, if you want to spend $1 million and you want to buy McDonald's or Burger King and you want a passive investment, go right ahead. They don't want you working in the company anyway. But if you have a price point where you're looking at 250,000 or less and you're in the service industry, there is not a company out there that you can set it and forget it. I don't care what they tell you. And there are plenty of slime balls out there that will tell you, oh yeah, you just sit back and we'll fill your calendar. No, they won't. No, they won't. It's not the way it works. The amount of work that goes into a franchise company or any company, 250,000 investment and less, there's a lot of skin in that game. You have to put in a lot of sweat equity. It's, our job is to provide a model and a support system and an education and a logo that's recognizable. Besides that, our job is pretty much over at that point. Now, if you're in a good franchise system like mine, there will be constant education and, referral networks built in and, things figured out, like for instance, with insurance companies to where you can get paid without jumping through hoops and having collection companies on staff or at least in the group. So we bring a lot to the table, but not every franchisor does. And there are plenty of slimy salesmen out there that will tell you it's a set it and forget it model. And I have not seen one yet. I tell people, when you find it, let me know. I'm all about it. That sounds great.
I'll sign up myself.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not for real.
So tell our followers more about best option restoration as far as the service that you provide, and so I want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Best option restoration is a water, mold, and fire remediation business. So if a pipe busts in a house or a house catches on fire, kitchen fire, you find mold in a crawl space or an attic as you're going to sell a home or buy a home. This is where our company comes in. I mean, most common calls that we get are, people wash their dishes at night in their dishwasher, and the braided hose from the dishwasher to the garbage disposal breaks in the middle of the night, and 500 gallons of water just keeps gushing out for 3 hours as the cycle runs. They wake up the next morning and they're standing in an inch of water. They're like, what do we do? That's where our company gets called. And we have relationships with insurance companies and other vendors that will call our franchisees out there to remediate these things. So fire, water, mold restoration, that's the mitigation side is where we start. And then our franchisees will actually rebuild the floors and drywall and painting and all that stuff. So it's a full service mitigation and remediation company. And then there's content cleaning in the sense of a fire and asbestos removal or mitigation. There's many verticals that happen in the restoration space, and we try to attack them all, but we do it in a very methodical way to where we're not overloading the franchisee. We bring out new verticals every year that the franchisee has the choice and option to get into, or stay steady with the 3 fire, water, mold, which is fine too.
And geographic location.
Yeah, I mean, what we look at is we give them 200,000 to 300,000 people based upon zip codes. One of our $1 million franchise, very strong franchises out of Baltimore, out by you guys. Great, his name's Mario. He was a great franchisee, great in the system. Mario and Lauren. He was actually a running back in Maryland, University of Maryland. I don't know if Mario ever played pro or not, but he was a. What I see is, going back to that question now that it just sparked my memory, athletes are great because they're competitive. They want to be the best. So it's no surprise that, Mario is a $1 million player his first year. He's been in business now for a little over a year. One of the things that I do differently than a lot of the franchisors is not only is the money and the accolades and, coming with successful business, run right, but what we do in our system is, and I've been doing this for a long time, I've given out, gosh, 30, 40 of them at this point. If you hit $1 million in revenue your first year in business, I buy you a Rolex. And Mario, so we gave 5 away this year in our company. So 5 new franchises all hit $1 million. So it's a big deal. When average franchising in our space is, 400 to 500,000 in revenue a year, if a franchisee can come out there and double what the average franchise is throughout the whole space, our average franchise is 700,000 plus, but just in the space in general, overall, all companies aggregate, it's about 400 to 500,000. When they come out and double that, it's a big deal. So I want to reward them and give them a trophy on the back of the Rolex. On the inside it says, $1 million club. We make a real big deal out of it in Vegas. So yeah, it's fun to do.
Nice.
I bet that means a lot, and I'm sure they really value just that. I'm just amazed that business leaders I've been around, how they really value those trophies and prizes and those things that are symbols of success.
Right. And that's what I tell people. I say, guys, it's a walking around trophy. You go to dinner with your wife, you slap that Rolex on, you remember, why you can take her to dinner, how that makes you feel, how hard it was to get that. And, every time you look at the time, it's, again, Shannon Sharp said it the other day, it's not so much, you look at your watch to see what time it is. I look at my watch to let you know how valuable my time is. He said that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was fantastic.
That's powerful. So we've talked about your successes, and everybody can see, you've scaled these different companies, but let's talk about your memorable failure. What's a memorable failure that comes to mind that you've learned from and that's helped shape you?
Man, I can pick through the various hats. I had a failure one time where the government came to me and said, and not the IRS, a different regulatory agency said, well, by the way, you owe us $2.2 million. And I said, What do you mean? Well, what happened? And what happened was, in franchising, you have this thing called an FDD, franchise disclosure document. And there were 2 lines missing. 2. I got fined $1 million for each line, the way I looked at it. But and it was based on the proportionate and the scale of the franchise company is where they got the number from. But I've always said it as I got hit $1.1 million per each line, and there were 2. There were 2 lines that I was missing in my FDD, where the FTC came back and said these are disclosures that need to be in there, and frankly, they're going to make an example out of me. And it was the size of the company and the amount of franchisees that I had sold without those 2 lines being in there. It was a choice that I made. It had nothing to do with legal. It was a choice that I made to leave those 2 lines out because I didn't need to have them in there. Well, the FTC said, well, just because you didn't need to doesn't mean you shouldn't have. And it was about different business failures. And I was like, well, it's not important. It's a different industry. It's been over 10 years since this happened. And, I can tell you $2.2 million wakes you up. So They got in there. I signed my check and they were immediately in there. And I couldn't continue to sell franchises until I submitted my FDD to the FTC for their approval. And of course, they did a few more things. They're like, well, since we're changing things, let's do this too. But yeah, I'll tell you, when you wake up to a letter and and they send it to you certified mail, they want to know you got it. And I open it up. I'm sitting there, at the time my 13-year-old son was 2 or 3 at that time. I was eating some cereal with him. I remember it perfectly. I woke up in the morning. I was just opening the next day mail. Oh, certified letter. Let me just see what this is. And I thought they were congratulating me on my success. No, just the opposite.
Wow. So like, what systems or habits do you have in place just to maintain the right mindset through all the ups and downs?
Oh, well, I'm very systematic. I'm very methodical in what I do. And I tell people this, and Eric, I feel like you know the answer to this. You've done a lot of research. So 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., I'm working Monday through Friday. 6:01 to 9 p.m., I'm with the family. I'm eating dinner. I'm watching The Real Housewives with my wife. I'm just being dad and husband. My wife goes to bed early, 9 p.m. So 9:01 to about midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning, I get back to work. I do that 5 days a week. Saturday, I take my wife out. The nanny watches the kids. It's just a day for me and her to reconnect because I work a lot. And then Sunday is day for church and day for family. And then back to it Monday morning. So I'm pretty methodical. I mean, I'll get up and I'll go to the gym about 4:30 in the morning. I'm home by 6. I'm usually in front of my computer. There are some days like anybody else. There are some days I'm making coffee and, like today, for instance, today's a perfect day. Went to the office. I was at the office about 7 o'clock. My wife calls me about 7:30 and says, "Hey, Gavin, our 13-year-old boy, my oldest, is feeling under the weather. I got to take the girls to school. Nanny isn't here. She doesn't get here till 8." And I said, "Yeah, I'll come home." So I've been home all day. So, I mean, I'm at home here, but normally I'm in the office till, good still hour and a half from now. But yeah, it's systematic and it keeps me on track because again, there's a lot, as you guys know, any family man knows there's a lot that goes on during the day and there are a lot of distractions. And if you are not disciplined enough to do what you need to do for the business, for yourself, eating right, working out, continuing to, just better yourself and your company every day, it's real easy to get caught up. And I just don't want to get caught up.
Hey Nick, did you think we're gonna just let you slide on that whole Real Housewives thing that you just kind of slid in there? It's like, I just kind of watched the Real Housewives. Did he just say you watch Real Housewives?
I do, man. I do. Okay, let me tell you this.
You're gonna find some way to tie some strategy into this house.
No. When the way I look at it is this way. I've been married now for 15 years. I have 3 beautiful kids, healthy, God-fearing, and whatever Mama wants to do, we do. I got 3 hours with her, 6 to 9. If she wants to sit down and watch the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or Atlanta or whatever it is,
whichever one,
and I watch them, and I'll make my comments because that's just I will admit, I think it's probably just us here and 10,000 other people. I might zone out a little bit and not pay attention, but no, it's on. Real Housewives. I mean, what is it? Monday? I think tomorrow night's the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I can't wait.
So Nick, when Ted asked that, I didn't laugh too hard because I have a similar habit. So. Yeah,
you got to stay married. I mean, if that's what she wants to do. I mean, same thing. I got a good buddy, Steven Sikowski. He actually lives out in Salt Lake City. He's an options teacher. He goes on stage and teaches options, and he's real successful at it. He's been doing it for years. And he called, and every Saturday, when I say I spend time with my wife, we go shopping every Saturday. And he calls it Molly's shopping day. That's just Saturday. So whatever Molly wants to do during the week, it's housewives. Saturday it's shopping, and again, I know. I always tell people, I like to be married. It grounds me, and God knows what would happen if I wasn't. So I better do everything I can to stay married. Housewives and all.
Yeah, no, that's
cool.
awesome. That's awesome. So you've written 4 books.
Yeah.
So which of your books would you recommend for that person who's looking to scale and exit their business?
I think it's a mind game. I mean, I have the 5th book in the queue now called called The Keys. I've had the 5th book in the queue since COVID. I keep changing things, so it's not out. So I would say that, but not that. I would say Bits of Wisdom. Bits of Wisdom is a book that I wrote in 30 days, and it's 17 essentially essays. When I was going around, I was going on stage throughout the country speaking on different topics to business owners. One of the things that I constantly got asked, or I should say I constantly got asked a handful of very continual questions. The same question. I don't care if it was in DC or San Francisco. They were the same questions over and over again. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to write a book called Bits of Wisdom. just little tidbits, just, essays, just real short essays on this topic, whatever it might be, on failure, on success, on family life, on, starting a business. And I'm going to write what I think right now, and I'm going to give myself 30 days to do it. Again, it kind of goes back to that. I'm very methodical with what I do. And I spent 30 days writing the book, got it out. And I think for an entrepreneur that really wants, in my opinion, some insights on the reality, because I've had people say, Nick, there parts of the book get dark. I mean, and I'm like, well, I was writing it at 3:00 in the morning, and I wanted to be very real about what I was saying. There's a chapter in there called Shark, where I talk about getting revenge on somebody who's done me wrong in business, and how I ended their business and made note that no one else knew I did it, but I made sure they knew. And it's not a good thing to write. But I wanted to give my real, because I talk about, the shark doesn't sleep and he's laying deep and he's just waiting for you to make that mistake. And I had buddies writing this going, I know what you're talking about. I'm surprised you wrote that. I'm like, well, again, at that time, that's what was on my mind. So I wanted to write, an essay about, this is what happens when you do wrong things to good people, the way I looked at it. So, so Bits of Wisdom, I think, is a good book for anybody. It's a great Christmas gift.
Yeah, don't mess with Nick. Nick can do something to you, then write a book about it.
It's like Taylor Swift and her songs, I guess. You get her, you break up with Taylor Swift, she writes a song about you and makes
a song about it.
Yeah. So something I've heard you say on other shows, and it kind of ties in what you just said about that's part of the book. You say business is not for sissies.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, most days you wake up and business is nothing but a problem. I mean, let's just call it what it is. And you get paid for how good you solve problems and, and the value that you bring to other people. And so I've gotten pretty good in my 20 years, 25 years of being in business for myself of solving problems. And, in the beginning, you can solve a problem that's about that big, and all of a sudden you get a problem out here and you don't know how to solve it. So you get better at it. And so the amount of problems that you can solve throughout the years gets bigger and bigger. So these problems that seemed like in the beginning was, oh gosh, I'm not capitalized well enough, or, oh, man, I had a bad complaint. I had a 5-star complaint on Google. What do I do? 5-6 years from now, as your problem scope is this big, you're like, gosh, I wish I had that problem. When the FTC comes knocking and says, you owe us $2.2 million, I wish I had that 5-star Google review problem. And you just get better at solving problems. So when I say it's not for sissies, you have to wake up every day and be okay, and do it with a smile on your face and still have gratitude for where you're at, knowing that usually every day there's gonna, someone's taking another swing at you, and it's you got to be okay with that. And there's whether you're rolling with the punches or there's an old boxing term. I don't know if you guys are into fighting, but there's an old boxing term called, you got to be able to swim without getting wet. You got to be able to get in and out before something happens to you. And business is a lot that way. So, if you can't stomach, let me say this. I think this is an important thing for your listeners and the viewers, is pressure does two things to people. Either makes you focus or it makes you crumble. And if it makes you crumble and you can't sleep at night, you can't function, you can't leave it out in the garage, and you can't come in and be the husband or the father that your parents need or that your wife needs because you're so bent up and you're in your own head. And, if you can't handle that pressure and live life and still be, live life with gratitude and thankful for what you have, you need to stay working for somebody else, because you're going to set yourself up for what I call ultimate failure. And, it's how well do you handle pressure? And again, you can't be a sissy and handle pressure, because it's just, you can't. My son was playing football. He's been playing for a long time, but since he's been 6. and they put him at linebacker, and he's not a big kid, but he's fast. And they put him as a linebacker, and he's a slot receiver. He's quick over the middle. He's good. He's got great hands. But this year they put him a linebacker, and he was a little timid about making a tackle. And so I told him, don't run up to the pile and stop. Don't run up to make the tackle and stop. So I said, don't run up just to get hurt, because if you don't follow through, if you don't hit through the person, all you're doing is, let's see how fast I can run there to get hurt. So you got to finish the play. And I think as an entrepreneur, one of the things that people do is they're very excited and very motivated until they get smacked in the face. And all of a sudden, wow, it's real. Somebody said no, or I got a complaint, or, my wife, changed her mind on whether this was a good idea. And you got to be able to sleep at night. And if you can't sleep at night, you're going to wish you could. You're going to wish you did.
Yeah, very, very, very well put. Gina Young has commented. She says, wow, Nick is on it.
Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. That's from another entrepreneur. So she's definitely hears what you're saying.
Well, I appreciate that.
All right. So we're at the final segment of the show. It's called Write This Down. And Nick, this is Ted's favorite part of the show. This is where we each go around and share at least one takeaway from today's episode that we want people to write down so they can level up. So Nick, you are the guest of honor today. What do people need to write down from today's show?
Well, I didn't say it, but I'm going to say it now. Nothing in business happens as fast as you want it to. Your timeline means nothing without the hard work. So you can map it out, but most likely it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go. And you got to be okay with that. So again, nothing happens as fast as you want it to.
Yeah, definitely have to write that down. All right. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, Ted.
Nick is a tough act to follow. He's a tough act to follow, I'll say it. But Nick, what I've noticed is, so many times I come across people and they're like, as an entrepreneur, they're like, I want to do what you're doing. I want to do what you're doing. I'm like, sure? Are you really sure that this is what you want to do? Because they just think it's all just, I don't know what they think it is, but just, you're getting all the yeses and you're making all the money and you can make the decisions. And they say things like, man, you can just take off whenever you want to, right? Like, why are you working? It's a holiday.
Yeah.
Like they say, it's the weekend. You're working through the weekend. Why are you working on the weekend? Like, you're right. I don't have to work on any of those days. Right. I can take, matter of fact, I don't got to work all week. I can take off the month. Right. But your business is never going to be successful. If you do that, you're going to get what you put into it. But I just think that a lot of times I think people, I don't know, they just have this misconception, that it's going to be, the grass is going to be so much greener, for them if they, they become an entrepreneur. And yeah, it's just, I don't think it's a thing about, I always tell people, I said, I don't think it's about the money. If it's about the money, you can make a lot of money working for someone, right? This right here is a true kind of a sacrifice and passion that you have to be an entrepreneur. And to listen to a person like you that's started and exited a couple times, you're probably at a place, I'm sure, where you really don't have to do it again, right? You just, you enjoy it. There's got to be something that you like about the game. Yeah. I think you gotta love the game. I think of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Ted, you couldn't have said any better. It's at this point, it's a game. The money's nice, but it's a game.
Yeah, it's good to know that it's just a game. I need to borrow some money or whatever, Nick, I'm gonna give you a call because I know you're good. That's my test to be like, Nick sounds like he's good. Now I really know he's good. So accept my connection on LinkedIn. Make sure you Don't have me out there pending. Like I'm like, really, Nick? like Nick has been 8 months since you've been on the show. I'm still pending. Right?
Good to know. Good to know.
Don't have me pending, brother. Don't have me pending.
I'm writing that down.
That's right. Write that down. Don't have me pending.
No, thank you for sharing that, Ted. So my contribution to this segment, it's the value of consistency. You know, I had a feeling when I asked Nick, you know, how do you maintain your mindset and everything, he wasn't going to say, well, you know, I don't really do anything. I just get up at 11:30 and eat Doritos and watch. No, I knew he was going to be very structured. You know, hey, I wake up, I go to the gym at this time. You know, I'm working at this time, and this time is with family, and then I go back. And that's the consistency is what's critical to success. Because what happens is you start to set certain things on autopilot, so you don't have to think about it, right? I'm sure there's times you don't feel like you're supposed to go to the gym, you don't feel like it, but that's just what you do. So it's, you know, it doesn't really require work. You don't have to think about it. So that's it. I mean, write that down. It's just the value of consistency. And you know, I have business owners that I work with, and they'll say, well, you know, why is this so up and down? Why are sales so up and down? Why is this result so up and down? Usually there's something inconsistent that the business owner is doing that's that's leading to that inconsistent result. Yeah. Right? When you start to put consistency in place, that's when you get consistent results like Nick has experienced. So definitely write that down. Yeah. So Nick, this has been a fantastic episode. What's the best way for people to connect with you to get more information?
Oh gosh, I think my PR company put out, it's called nickanthonyzamucen.net or something like that. I tell people go to B.O.R. They can get a hold of me too. I tell people, you know, heck, my email address is nickz@BORestoration.com. I don't mind who has it. I know I'll probably get hacked now, but I'll change my password.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Nick, for sharing everything that you shared. And for those of you who are watching us or listening to us, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show. Don't forget to share the show.
That's right. Don't keep this episode a secret. And then don't forget you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those podcasting platforms and listen at any time. And don't forget to follow or subscribe. That way you'll never miss a future episode. So that's our time for this week on the 30 Minute Hour podcast. Until next time, have a great one.